Praise is due to Allah who has united the hearts of the believer in Islam and has made it an obligation to remain united and has made it forbidden to become separated in his clear book. I bear witness that there is nothing worthy of worship except Allah, who guides to the straight path whom he wills. And I bear witness that our leader Muhammad is his messenger and the best caller to the way that is straight. O Allah, send your prayers and your peace upon our leader Muhammad and upon his family and upon his companions, whose hearts were united and whose souls were educated, so that they became victorious leaders. And what follows thereafter, O believers of Allah, I advise you as well as I advise myself to first have the proper regard for Allah and thereafter be obedient to him. Dear believers, I greet you with the universal greetings of peace. Assalamu alaikum, which means peace be with you. This week we are looking at the attribute of Al-Mumīt. Al-Mumīt, which means the bringer of death or the destroyer. And we know that as we've been taking this journey through the 99 attributes of Allah, that many of these attributes have touched on the more pleasant, what we would deem as the more pleasant qualities. Allah's ability for forgiveness, Allah's the giver of life, the restorer, all these different topics that we have looked at in relation to Allah's attributes. But today, this week, we look at Al-Mumīt, which means the bringer of death. And why is this attribute important? It is important because it represents accountability. It represents this understanding of what the end goal is for us as Muslims, as believers, as ones who follow Allah and the life example of the Prophet, peace be upon him. So Al-Mumīt, the bringer of death, as a theme or as an attribute that discusses accountability. We know that as we live our lives as Muslims, as we have discussed over the weeks, over the months, it is the life of the Muslim is all to a certain end. It all is to a certain goal that we pray that we achieve. It is to a end that we pray that we in some way, in some form, that we are rewarded by our Creator for our efforts. And we know that all throughout the Qur'an, it talks about those who do good, the reward that they shall receive, and those who do not live their life in the best way. It discusses what they shall receive, what they have earned for themselves through their actions. And this moment and this time of accountability comes with death, comes with the death of this life that we're living, where our human form, that life comes to an end. And we know that as we read the Quran and we study the religion, that the soul lives on, that the soul continues on, and the next life, the hereafter, as it's often referred to, is more lasting, is the thing that is going to take a lot more of the time than maybe the 20, the 50, the 80, the 100 years that we may live here on earth, that we may live this life. The hereafter is more lasting. And the only way that we are going to get to that point, to know what our outcome is through that moment of accountability, which is after death, when we are called to account. So Allah is the bringer of death. Allah is the one who causes this moment of accountability, this time for accountability, to where all of our actions, all the things that we've done, all the things that we did not do but we should have done, we will be held accountable for that. And Allah says in the Quran, He says that every soul shall taste death. Every soul shall taste death. Meaning that there is going to be a point that we will be held accountable. There is no getting around it. And it doesn't say that we're going to stay there. It doesn't say that every soul shall die. It says that it shall taste death. And we know that our soul is what's inside of us. Our soul is what's going to be held accountable for the actions that we take in this human form. And so this death that we're tasting is this moment of accountability. So dear believers, as we think about the other attributes that we've covered, as we think about the religion, as we think about what we're commanded to do, we think about all those different things, we have to remember that there will be a time of accountability. And Allah is Al-Mumīt. Allah is the bringer of death. Allah is the bringer of that accountability. He is the one who is going to hold us to account. So let's maintain our focus. Let's make sure that as we begin to really begin to study and understand this religion, that we keep that in mind, not as something to be afraid of, not as something to fear, but to know that it's coming, but to know that it's on its way, that we are moving closer and closer every moment, every day, to the time when we will be held to account. Allah, the bringer of death. أقول هذا استغفر الله لي ولكم والحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على آل إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على آل محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على آل إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. Now, for many, the concept or the idea of death is a topic that is not that people do not want to discuss, that they don't really want to engage in, because of the things that surround it, whether it's the grief of those who knew the one who died, or maybe it is the cause or the reason of that person's death, whether it was by natural causes, whether it was someone else was the cause, or maybe they were the cause, or maybe it was a child. Maybe something happened to that child. So all these topics, all these ideas and understandings of death make us want to pull back and not really engage it. And if we do engage it, we don't engage it from a religious aspect, from a religious standpoint, to get an understanding. And for some, those that aren't religious, or those that may not engage in Islam, may sometimes see it as, they may see it differently than we do. So we know that in the Quran, Allah says over and over again that the believers shall not fear, nor shall they grieve. They shall not fear, nor shall they grieve. Now, yes, in each verse there is context to that, and there is something that this is trying to convey. It is trying to convey that the believer, and we can go through the Quran and see everything that it says a believer is, everything that a believer does to be titled or labeled as a believer, they shall not fear. So this idea of what is it that they're fearing? What is this fear? For many, it's the fear of death. For many, it's the fear of something is going to happen to them, and maybe they won't be here to provide for their family. Maybe they won't be here to watch their children grow up. Maybe they won't be able to to do all the things that they aspire to do. So there's this fear of death. But for the believer, they know that death is coming. They know that Allah is Al-Mumīt, the bringer of death. He is going to bring death. So the believer is the one who prays, who gives a zakat, who does the things that Allah asks them to do. And as we look at the other attributes, we see that we seek His forgiveness. We ask for His mercy. We ask for all these things because we know there are going to be times that we won't fulfill what it is exactly to the T that He wants us to do. So we turn to Him. And this is what the believer does. The believer continues this process through their life until that time that Allah brings death to them, to the time that their soul tastes death. So they don't have this same fear. Yes, as a human, you may be fearful of the situation. You may be fearful of that moment, but you've lived your life in such a way that inshallah, God willing, you will achieve paradise. You will be counted amongst the believers. And it says that they shall not grieve. Now this one we know as humans, it's not that harsh. It's not that black and white to where the believer's not going to cry because they lose the love. They lost the love. That's not what it's saying. It's saying that in their heart, there's going to be that human emotion, but they're not going to grieve that this person who lived their life as a believer, this person who prayed, who gave zakat, who did all the things that Allah asked to the best of their ability, and asked for forgiveness and mercy when they didn't fulfill that they will be comforted knowing that this person lived their life as a Muslim. This person died in a state of belief. So they won't grieve for them the same way that they would grieve, that they would feel bad for the person who went their entire life forsaking Allah, not following the life example of the Prophet, doing all these things that are antithetical to the religion. There's a different grief because of the idea of the horror, the shame that person's soul is going to receive. So it's different. It's not just won't be scared if something happens, won't be grieving, won't be sad if something happens. It's on a different level because Allah is going to hold us to account. If we did the right thing, if we lived our lives right, then we will be rewarded. And if we did not, we will get exactly what we earned. This is what Allah tells us in the Qur'an. So this is the Muslim understanding of death. This is what when we study, when we begin to read, when we begin to understand, we know that we are going to be held to account. We know that this life is in the Quran, it says is enjoyment. It's not lasting. So as a believer, as a Muslim, we know that death is coming. We don't know how, we don't know where, we don't know when, but it is coming. So it is up to us. It is up to us to live our lives in a way that is pleasing to our Creator. To live our lives in a way that when Al-Mumīt, the bringer of death, decides that it's our time to go, that we won't be fearful. That maybe I should have prayed a little bit more. Maybe I should have read the Quran a little bit more. Maybe I should have given zakat a little bit more. We won't be fearful because we left it all out there. And those who know us, those who see our character, who see us on a daily basis, they may be sad. They may cry a little bit. They may hurt in their heart. But they'll know, inshallah, that this person achieved paradise. because they lived their life in a way that was pleasing to their creator, Al-Mumīt, the bringer of death, the one that's going to hold us to account. So let's not give up. Let's not give up on the desire to please our creator. Let's not be so fearful that death is coming. Allah is Al-Mumīt, the bringer of death. He will bring death, but on the other side of that, if you live your life in the right way, is paradise. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم إن صلاتي ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين لا شريك له وبذلك أمرت وأنا أول المسلمين الحمد لله رب العالمين آمين